Level 1, Pretenders. These are the champions who won the belt, but never really belonged there. They caught lightning in a bottle for one night, but when the smoke cleared, everyone knew it was a fluke. Nicco Montano won the inaugural women's flyweight title at the Ultimate Fighter 26 finale in December 2017, beating Roxanne Modafferi by unanimous decision. She never defended her title, not once. She was stripped in September 2018 due to her inability to make weight and health issues. Her championship reign lasted 294 days of proving absolutely nothing. After losing the belt, her career crumbled, going 1-2 in her next 3 fights before being released by the UFC. Germaine de Randamie won the inaugural women's featherweight title by beating Holly Holm at UFC 208, but immediately refused to defend against Chris Cyborg, citing a hand injury. The UFC stripped her of the title. She vacated rather than face the division's most dangerous fighter. She chose to give up the belt rather than prove she deserved it. Dave Minnie was the UFC's first middleweight champion when they created the division in 2001. He won the title by defeating Gil Castillo at UFC 33, then immediately lost it to Mario Bustamante in his first defense at UFC 35. His reign lasted just 92 days, and he was never a factor in the division again. He represented the growing pains of a new weight class more than championship excellence. Evan Tanner won the middleweight title by submitting David Terrell at UFC 51, but his reign was brief and chaotic. He defended it once against Rich Franklin, losing by TKO. Tanner was more known for his wild lifestyle and tragic death in the desert than for any championship dominance. His 106-day reign was a footnote in middleweight history. The pretender level exists because sometimes the stars align perfectly for an average fighter. The right matchup, the right night, the right circumstances. But championship greatness isn't about one perfect night. It's about proving you belong there again and again. Level 2, Gatekeepers. These champions won the belt and defended it, but they were always more obstacle than destination. They held the title just long enough to prove they weren't pretenders, but never long enough to build a real legacy. Forrest Griffin won the light heavyweight title at UFC 86 in July 2008, defeating Rampage Jackson by unanimous decision. He defended the title once, submitting Stephen Bonner at UFC 89. Then Rashad Evans knocked him out cold at UFC 92, ending his reign after just 133 days. Griffin had heart and determination, but lacked the elite attributes needed to stay at the top. Rashad Evans knocked out Griffin to win the title, then defended it once against Thiago Silva before losing to Lyoto Machida. Evans was a solid champion who proved he belonged at the top, but he was never dominant enough to be considered truly great. His wrestling base and knockout power made him dangerous, but not legendary. Fabricio Verdum submitted Fedor Emelianenko in Strikeforce, then won the UFC heavyweight title by submitting Cain Velasquez at UFC 188. He defended once against Mark Hunt before Stipe Miocic knocked him out. Verdum had excellent ground game and underrated striking, but never achieved sustained dominance. Michael Bisping finally won the middleweight title at age 37, knocking out Luke Rockhold at UFC 199. He defended once against Dan Henderson in an emotional rematch, then lost to George St. Pierre. Bisping's journey to the title was inspiring, but his reign was brief and came too late in his career to build a lasting legacy. Tyron Woodley knocked out Robbie Lawler to win the welterweight title, then defended it 4 times against Stephen Thompson twice, Damian Maia, and Darren Till. His reign was marked by boring fights and fan criticism, despite his legitimate skills. He lost the title to Kamaru Usman and never regained championship form. Gatekeepers serve an important function in UFC history. They prove that the belt means something, that you can't just stumble into championship greatness. They're legitimate champions who earn their place, but they're also reminders that holding the belt and truly owning it are two very different things. Level 3, Contenders. These are the champions who not only won the belt, but defended it multiple times, building legitimate championship runs. They faced real competition and proved they belong at the top, but something always prevented them from reaching true legendary status. Robbie Lawler won the welterweight title at UFC 181, defeating Johnny Hendricks by unanimous decision. His first defense against Hendricks was a war. Then came UFC 189 against Rory McDonald, pure violence that ended with Lawler's jab shattering McDonald's nose. The image of Lawler, blood covering his face, celebrating with primal intensity, became iconic. He defended once more before Tyron Woodley knocked him out, ending his reign. Lyoto Machida won the light heavyweight title by knocking out Rashad Evans at UFC 98, then defended it once against Shogun Rua in a controversial decision. The rematch went to Shogun, ending Machida's reign. His karate-based style was unique and effective, but his championship window was brief at age 31. Junior Dos Santos knocked out Cain Velasquez at UFC on Fox 1 to win the heavyweight title, then lost it back to Velasquez in their rematch. Dos Santos had elite boxing and knockout power. He couldn't solve Velasquez's wrestling and pressure in their trilogy. Luke Rockhold won the middleweight title by submitting Chris Weidman at UFC 194, then immediately lost it to Michael Bisping at UFC 199. Rockhold had all the physical tools: height, reach, striking, grappling, but his mental approach and defensive lapses prevented him from building a championship legacy. Rafael dos Anjos won the lightweight title by dominating Benson Henderson, then defended it once against Donald Cerrone with a brutal first-round TKO. He lost the title to Eddie Alvarez in his second defense. RDA's Muay Thai and pressure were elite, but his championship window was narrow in the lightweight division's most competitive era. Contenders are legitimate champions who proved they could compete with the best fighters in the world. They had successful title defenses and memorable moments, but they lacked either the longevity, the level of competition, or the dominance needed to be considered truly great. Level 4 Elite. This is where championship greatness truly begins. These fighters didn't just win titles and defend them, they dominated their divisions for extended periods, faced elite competition, and left lasting impacts on their weight classes. Cain Velasquez won the heavyweight title twice and proved that technique, conditioning, and relentless pressure could overcome size and power. After losing to Junior Dos Santos, he reclaimed the title and systematically destroyed Dos Santos in their trilogy. His combination of cardio, wrestling, and striking was unlike anything the heavyweight division has seen. Injuries prevented him from reaching legendary status. Chris Weidman dominated the middleweight division during one of its strongest eras. He knocked out Anderson Silva twice, ending the greatest championship reign in UFC history. Weidman defended his title 3 times total, also defeating Lyoto Machida and Vitor Belfort. His wrestling base and improved striking made him a nightmare matchup until Luke Rockhold ended his reign. Stipe Miocic won the heavyweight title by knocking out Fabricio Verdum, then defended it 3 times, more than any heavyweight champion at that point. He knocked out Alistair Overeem, Junior Dos Santos, and Daniel Cormier. His boxing was crisp, and his fight IQ was elite until Cormier knocked him out in their rematch. Jose Aldo dominated the featherweight division for nearly a decade. He defended the WEC and UFC titles 7 times combined, defeating legends like Uriah Faber, Kenny Florian, and Chad Mendez twice. His leg kicks were devastating, and his takedown defense was legendary. Conor McGregor's 13-second knockout ended his reign, but Aldo's dominance was undeniable. Dominic Cruz revolutionized the bantamweight division with his unique movement and footwork. He won the WEC title and defended the UFC belt twice before injuries derailed his career. His ability to avoid damage while landing precise strikes was unmatched. He lost the title to Cody Garbrandt, but proved his elite status throughout multiple comebacks. Elite champions separate themselves through sustained excellence against top competition. They don't just win titles, they clean out divisions and force the next generation of fighters to evolve. Level 5 Legends. Level 5 Legends. These are the champions who transcended their divisions and became icons of the sport. They didn't just dominate, they did it with style, personality, and moments that defined entire eras of mixed martial arts. Chuck Liddell was the face of the UFC during its explosive growth in the mid-2000s. He won the light heavyweight title by knocking out Tito Ortiz, then defended it 4 times with his devastating overhand right. His mohawk and tribal tattoos made him instantly recognizable, and his knockouts played on SportsCenter. He became the first UFC fighter that casual sports fans could name. Matt Hughes dominated the welterweight division during the UFC's early growth period. He won the title twice and defended it 7 times total. His signature moment came when he lifted Frank Trigg over his head and slammed him down for the knockout. Hughes was farm strong and evolved his striking throughout his career until George St. Pierre ended his era. Tito Ortiz was the UFC's first real star. He won the light heavyweight title at UFC 25 and defended it 5 times, becoming the face of the promotion during its early pay-per-view era. His ground and pound was devastating, his trash talk was legendary, and he feuded with Chuck Liddell for years, creating the UFC's first major storyline. BJ Penn was a prodigy who won titles in 2 weight classes. He defeated Matt Hughes for the welterweight title, then moved down to lightweight where his natural talent shined. His boxing was crisp, his jiu-jitsu was world-class, and his takedown defense was legendary. and cleaned out the light heavyweight division before moving up for bigger challenges. Randy Couture won titles in 2 weight classes and became the natural for his late career success. He won the heavyweight title 3 times and the light heavyweight title twice, often as an underdog. His wrestling base and fight IQ allowed him to defeat younger, stronger opponents well into his 40s. Couture was the ultimate veteran champion. What made these fighters legendary was their combination of skill, personality, and perfect timing. They become champions during crucial periods in UFC history and helped build the sport into what it is today. Level 6, GOATs. Level 6, GOATs. The level's reserved for the champions who didn't just dominate their divisions, they redefined what dominance means. These fighters had championship runs so impressive that they're still used as the standard for greatness decades later. Anderson Silva held the middleweight title for 2,457 days, nearly 7 years. He defended it 10 times, more than any champion at the time. Silva didn't just beat his opponents, he toyed with them. His knockout of Vitor Belfort with a front kick was pure artistry. He made elite fighters look amateur until Chris Weidman ended his reign. George St. Pierre was the most complete mixed martial artist of his generation. He won the welterweight title twice and defended it 9 times in his second reign. GSP's approach was methodical perfection, studying opponents for months, then executing game plans with surgical precision. Retired as a champion, something almost no fighter does. John Jones is the most naturally gifted fighter in UFC history. He won the light heavyweight title at age 23 and defended it 8 times in his first reign. His physical gifts were unprecedented. 6'4" with an 84.5-inch reach, moving like a middleweight. His creativity was off the charts with spinning elbows and unorthodox striking no one could prepare for. Demetrius Johnson was the most technically perfect fighter in UFC history. He defended the flyweight title 11 times, breaking Anderson Silva's record. His skill set was complete and